Well, hello and welcome to the Sports Bar, chewing the fat and talking balls as we always do every single week here on the Sports Bar. And I was counting, Brent, that in 2020 we managed to record somehow. I don't know how we did it, but we managed to record 68 shows, which is some going.
Fantastic. That it just shows we've been proactive while we've been in this lockdown from football.
Yeah, we've had some great guests on as well, and we did mention them last week, but one we did forget, and how we can forget is sacrilege.
Listen, I can't believe we forgot him. I did say at the time, if there's anybody we forgot, I do apologise, but we did forget Mark Leather.
The physiotherapist to the stars.
Exactly. Mark, if you were listening in and tuning into us, I really, really sincerely apologise for that. I'd so many to go through, and you were one of the latter ones on, and unfortunately, for some reason, we miss you out, but I do apologise. And
I remember that show because that was a really good show and some insightful stuff from his time at Liverpool.
Yeah, and it obviously just recently it's been relevant because he, as you know, he worked with the late Gerard Houllier, who sadly passed away. So, all things being equal, we should have. Mark should have been there at the top of the list. We should have remembered Mark, but we were going down the list. It was just unfortunate, and it just shows that we're not infallible. We do make mistakes.
We don't write things down, and we should do, but it's all fun.
It is, but I noticed that we're back to where we were, not where we were last week, because last week we were actually in the sports bar. Well, I'm in the sports bar this week, and you're out there over in the Yorkshire Dales or on the peripheral of Yorkshire Dales in Earby. Do you know why? I'll tell you why.
Go on.
It's easy.
Oh dear.
We got it wrong last week, but we're on now.
No, you got it wrong.
Listen, it's absolutely mad up here.
It's mad here. Mad here.
Well, we'd never have come together. This is the only way we can come together. So, you know what? That's absolutely... It's good that you're technically minded and we can do it.
Yeah. You're
in Earby, I'm in the sports bar, and happy days. And you know what? I'm going to tell you something else.
Go on, you tell me.
Well, I'm sure that people out there, all our viewers, had sooner listen to us chewing the fat and talking balls, although today's show, I'm sure we won't be talking balls, but I'm sure that people would sooner tune into us than tune into national television, because every time you tune into national television, all they're talking about every time you turn the television on is about a load of pricks. I mean, that's all you hear. That's all they talk about, a load of pricks. And before anybody starts reporting us to Ofsted, I'm talking about the
vaccinations, of course.
Exactly. So there we go. We're going to talk a lot of sense today.
We are going to try and talk a lot of sense, as you say, chewing the fat and talking balls. And just one topic of conversation. Usually I have 5 or 6, Brent, but today is about the FA Cup. It's been a great weekend. That brilliant result for Chorley, a 3-0 victory over Leeds United. Marine, even though the result wasn't great on the pitch, off the pitch, from a financial perspective, was really, really good. And of course, with our friends over at Chorley and your friend Terry Robinson, who would have been delighted with that 2-0 victory over Derby County.
Yeah, I mean, that's the beauty of the FA Cup, and the likes of Chorley now, we can look forward to another home draw against Wolverhampton. I think it's Wolverhampton Wanderers they got. So
yeah, it's Wolves. So
yeah, so that's
Ben Kay will be busy on the pitch, of course.
Yeah, will he be sleeping there like he did do the last time?
Hey, I'll tell you, you were a bit dodgy. You were all right sleeping. Did you see what blanket he had? M&M.
Well, I'll tell you what it is. He's a better man than me because it mustn't be haunted. This place is haunted. I wouldn't like to be sleeping here at night with what goes on even during the day. We see it on the camera.
Yeah. But no, it was great. It was great for them and also great for Ben. No, we're on the subject of Ben. briefly. I believe he's been offered the opportunity to go down to Wembley for the final and help the team down there. The ground staff.
That's brilliant. That's his rewards. That's his that's brilliant. And what people don't seem to remember, listen. What people forget is before any football match goes on, everybody wants to see the football match. That's the big hype goes up to the game. In this instance, Chorley, the big hype going up to playing Derby County. Nobody even thinks about the preparations that go in to prepare for that game. And a big part of that preparation is making sure your playing surface is right. Making sure you've got a good surface to play on. Yeah. And and that's where. And it's not easy, because it's not easy, as Ben will tell you yourself. You're fighting against the elements. He can't predict. I mean, if we're out in Dubai where every day is sunny, in the sunny climate, that's brilliant. But it's not.
All the beauties of under-soil eating at your disposal.
Well, yeah. But you're not. So, the likes of Ben and all the other groundsmen out there are fighting against the elements all the time. You can't. There's certain things that you can do when it's raining, but there's a lot of things you can't do. You can make the ground even a lot worse than what it is if you start messing about with when it's had a lot of water on it. So, credit to Ben and his team at Chorley. They did a wonderful job under difficult circumstances. And obviously, getting the game on when a lot of games would have gone. And the way they did it and the commitment that they showed. It were brilliant. And the, credit, people have recognised that fact, and the fact that he can go to Wembley and be involved with a team down at Wembley is, credit to them as well. Thank you very much, because they've
appreciated the work that he's doing.
Appreciated the work, and that's what the FA Cup. It's all part and parcel of the magic of the FA Cup. Yeah,
bringing people together, and we touched upon it. Marine, we touched upon it last week. Excellent occasion for the football club. Not the result they were looking for. A good display by the team, but off the field, financially, it's probably put the club in a very positive position for the next 5 years, Brent.
Well, yeah, again, that's, from a situation where, and I always keep going on about this, where there's negatives, there's got to be positives behind it. And if you think about it, the FA Cup, usually the dream is, you want to get drawn against a top club, so you get a sellout crowd, whether it's home or away. But as you know, in these difficult times, we can't have fans in, or they can't have fans in. So, whoever came up with that idea, I thought were absolutely fantastic, because, the negative is, well, we can't have fans in. We've got to try our best to reap what we can because this might never come around again. Or if it does come around, we might have to wait another 20, 30, 40 years for it to happen. And whoever came up with that, about the draw, buying a ticket, it was quality, because I think at the end of the day, there's something like 38,000 people had actually bought tickets into that.
The beauty was with that is that a lot of them supporters, Tottenham Hotspur fans, were buying into that as well and buying the virtual tickets. And I believe in the region of about £100,000 was taken through ticket sales, which is great news.
It's brilliant. It's fantastic, and like you said, it's the magic of everything about it. Everything about it was the magic of the FA Cup, and this is what it's about. Even in difficult times, it still brought the magic. But the magic wouldn't be there. Let's be honest about this, Steve. The only reason that the FA Cup has got this magic is because it's a cup where it's the non-league teams that make it the magic.
It's the David and Goliath situation.
Yeah, exactly. It's the David and Goliath, and it's the shot. I mean, okay, we've had it in the past where, was it when Ben Stokoe was the manager of, was it Leeds United, Ben Stokoe? No, Sunderland.
Bob Stokoe running on, it was
running on the pitch when it's Sunderland against. Who were it against? That I can't remember who it were against now, but I can see him there running on the pitch. That were kind of against all odds situations.
Yeah. And then you look at the Ronnie
that.
Radford for Hereford United versus Newcastle United.
Yeah.
These pictures that just pop up in our minds from time to time.
Yeah, and I think that what really, really creates the magic of the FA Cup is the fact that non-league teams are in it, and they have a run in it, and they play in the big boys. And when that happens, it's so special. I mean, everybody, no disrespect to the Chorley game. I mean, everybody were interested in the Chorley game, but that got watered down a little bit because they were playing it ended up with the first team squad and Wayne Rooney having the COVID issue. And, the 23s were going there. But with the Marine game, it wasn't, Jose Mourinho, and that's credit again to Jose. He said, we're going to show him respect and we're going to bring a strong squad. And he did, to be fair, he did, the superstar. And it's no wonder, you got people congregating around the entrance because, the mighty Spurs, a lot of them people won't have even, who don't even bother about going to Premiership games, won't even have seen in the flesh, the likes of Gareth Bale,
But as you say, give Jose some credit because he said he was going to bring a strong squad, and that's certainly what he did.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, brilliant.
I want to pick up on. Go on.
I was just going to say it made the occasion. It was special because, again, I'm not taking anything away from Derby and the Chorley situation, but the Marine and Tottenham, because of Tottenham's the big guns coming into town and it being played at Marine, I just think everything about it. And credit again as well. We underestimate the television companies. I thought the BBC did a fantastic job on the build-up and everything about it. I thought that was good as well. It makes it, it makes good viewing. It made it interesting. It was good.
Yeah. You talk about the Chorley. We've spoke about the Chorley versus Derby County for the last, few days, and also been picking up on points what Neil Warnock's been saying, what some of the experienced coaches have been saying in regards to that Chorley versus Derby County's under-23s, men against boys, as what has been quoted by several senior managers and coaches. What's your take on this, Brent? Because this is the main talking point of the Sports Bar Show today. What are your thoughts on that? And what do you agree with Neil Warnock's comments?
I do. I agree with Neil Warnock's comments 1,001%. Listen, I'm going to steal your thunder a little bit here because I'm old school, and you know what Jamie Ireland said on our show. Old school is
new school.
Correct. So from where I'm sat, and a person that's been involved in academies, and a person that's been involved in youth football, within a football league club and development, I've seen big changes along the years, and I'm not too sure that it's the changes for the better. In fact, I think it's changes not for better. I said because it's all part of a development, and I've even noticed it here at Bacup Borough football is that when we've taken a player in that's been at a football league club in an academy kind of environment, trying to gear for the under-23s, it's been a wake-up call for them when they've played in kind of the Northwest Counties League, where it's kind of physical and demanding, physical and mentally. Everything about it is it's a demanding environment. And kind of what Neil Warnock's saying is they need to get back to the old Central League days, where you could have senior pros playing in the same games as these development players and be playing against them, because it kind of toughens them up. It makes them more, it kind of gets them into a more situation, beefed up, more physicality. Whereas, and his actual words were, Neil, in a piece that I kind of picked up on and read, where he's saying, they're in these academies and it's pass.
Yeah, it's pretty football.
And that'll only get you so far. I remember a few years ago, I had a coach here that I brought into Bacup Borough. He was an experienced footballer. He'd played at Borough and he played at Manchester City, and he'd been head of youth at Borough. And we had some good tasty lads at the time. Well, we've got good tasty lads now, but we had good tasty lads, a good group of lads. And he studied all these videos and he'd watched how kind of Barcelona were. And he came to me one day and he said to me, you know what, Brent? And he was serious about this. He said, you know what, Brent? He said, I've seen our lads, how they play. We can play the Barcelona way. We can do this. And I'm like, I'm sat there and I'm listening to him. And I went, yeah. He said, we've got the players that can do it. We've got players that can receive a ball. We've got players that can receive a ball on the half turn. They know exactly where the next ball's going to. They can pass. They can move. They're slick on the passing. He said, we can get them drilled and play the Barcelona way. The pitch? So no. Well, yeah. Have you seen the pitch? But no, never mind the pitch. I mean, the one thing I come up with, I went, yeah, but hang on, that's okay. But what about getting the ball back? What about when we haven't got the ball? Who's going to win it back? And that word, winning it back.
Yeah.
And his exact words to me were, and I thought it were a bit short-sighted, he said, we won't lose the ball. We'll keep it. We'll football them off the pitch. And I'm going, at some point, we will lose the ball. We won't have it. I said, so when they've got the ball, right, we need to have somebody in that team that can win it back. And I think this is where football's it's gone. It's evaporate because it's like higher up you go in the leagues. It's like we'll stand off now. You play your football, and we'll get into shape, and we'll just let you. And you've got to try and break us down in the shape that we're in, right? And then when you give a bad pass, right, we've now got the ball, so you'll back off into shape. Right, and then we'll get the ball and we'll play and we'll try and get in behind, and that's kind of how it is these days. Whereas back in the day, it's not about that. You had a bit of you had balance in your team, and you had ball winners and people who go in there and give you a bit of a dig, and and I think we've got away from that, and I feel that 100% what Neil Warnock's talking about, we need to get back to. We need to get back to. It's important for the development of these lads that potentially. Let's get one thing straight here. The development. There's big investment. Everybody's going in. I mean, we've just seen it this week, and everybody's. I'm digressing a little bit here, but it's gone out there on social media where Macclesfield are offering an academy status where people could come on trial at at Macclesfield for like on a residential course for I think it's a couple of weeks or whatever it is, yeah. And they're asking for £8,000, right? Now, in my eyes, they're in cloud cuckoo land, but that's another story. We're not gonna get on about that here.
No.
But what I'm trying to get at is the reasons why people like Robbie Savage is so particular on getting involved with the youth structure and youth, and he was like banging the drum when grassroots wasn't playing, because he has all these potentially talented lads that they're coaching and trying to develop and bring on. Yeah. Why? Because
there's an ulterior motive. There's an agenda behind it.
Exactly. So because these are the kids of the future, and some of them kids, could go on to become multi-million pound players.
Yeah.
So the development of these kids, in my opinion, has got to be right. But development isn't just about receiving a ball and being comfortable on a ball and being awareness on passing. They've got to understand the all aspects of the game.
And have the character.
Now, the only way that they're going to learn the all aspects of the game and have the character is be put into that environment. Put into that environment where, again, we come back to only the strong survive. If you can take, for instance, if we took the most talented players from Burnley Foot, and I'm using Burnley Football Club because they're just 5.5 miles over the hill from us. Yeah. So if we were to take in here a kind of the best quality players from Burnley Football Club's under-23s, and they come into our environment, right, and got with us, and then played in the North West Counties League, which I've always said, if you want to develop somebody, if you want to develop a player, this is the grooming ground where you need to, because it is demanding and it's physical.
You're going to get ripped up.
You're going to get ripped up, but they're also good teams that play excellent football as well. It's not boom. It's not alehouse football. It's technically, it is, as you've witnessed yourself, it is technically very, very good. But you've got to stand up and be countered. You know, technique will only take you so far. You've got to have the physical presence. And the only way you're going to have that is to be in that environment, to have that put into you and see if you can stand it. Everything else will come together. Now, that doesn't seem to be happening because the best way I can describe, if you've got a bunch of college students playing in a college league.
Yeah, they're in like a little cocoon or in a bubble.
In a bubble. And the college league, and they're not playing outside the college league. It's college leagues against college leagues. And they use the similar template than what there's probably been drummed into our modern coaches of today at down with the FA. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
What you're going to get then is you're not going to get that physicality. You're just going to get football like I call it
exhibition football.
I call it Subbuteo football. That's what it is, Subbuteo football, right? If you take them out of that college environment and put them into more of an open environment where they've got to train their minds on winning mentality and winnings at all costs, and you're playing against other teams that have winning mentality, you get for physical demanding games.
Yeah. You're going to be tested.
You get tested. So I kind of think we've got to get back, and I think that's what Neil Warnock's saying, because he touches here about the model that Brentford have. He said it's no surprise that Brentford in 2016 scrapped their academy.
Yeah, I remember that.
He said they scrapped the academy, and he said, and they've gone like for a B team kind of setup. He said, and what they've got is the more experienced, the more like lads that have the better, more physical lads that have to come into their environment, and they kind of mix them with the first team players, the first team squad players, and then he said they farm them out to the non-league clubs where they get in, where it can toughen them up, and that's where they're round. And he feels that is kind of a better model than what the current setup is.
But you were telling me of a situation where you took a side to Manchester, and you know Brian Robson was playing in a game.
No, when I was a youth team coach down at Borough, and in them days it was in the Lancashire League. You had the Lancashire League, which is kind of the same format. So you had the groups where you had an A team in the Lancashire League and you had a B team in the Lancashire League. And the B team was made up of kind of first year apprentices, and if you through injuries or whatever, or if you were short, you had to get the schoolboys in, basically, that's ready to come into that, you know, to become an apprentice, yeah? And the A team was made up of second year apprentices, but kind of also first year pros. So I was with the B. I was running coaching the B team, and we went down to Littleton Road in one of our games. We played Manchester United, and you never know what you're going to get because it's the same thing for them. Well, this particular game, we went down to Littleton Road. We're playing Manchester United, and we're playing against the likes of, you know, Nicky Butt were playing in it. Ryan Giggs were playing in it, but the one big name that was playing in it that wasn't in a development kind of arena, probably Nicky Butt back in the day, then we're probably just in development, you know, but one big name that did play in it were Brian Robson. So these players are playing, you can imagine.
We're playing with a legend in Brian Robson.
Yeah, so the Bury, like, I mean, my group were the first team apprentices. So you can imagine the first team apprentices. But Brian Robson were actually playing in kind of a B team game. He dropped down because he was coming back and he needed as many games as he could get in, and they threw him in them games. It's tough and mild, you know. They just learn, you know, just that in that game alone. There's so much that they picked up from that game, and so much they could achieve from it. And the playing of a legend like Brian Robson. It was fantastic, and let me tell you, he weren't pulling out. Brian Robson were playing like Brian Robson plays.
Yeah. What do you think it is? What do you think it is, Brent? Why do you think the template or the models change? Because, you know, you've got 40 years experience in the game, in the professional game as well. You've got a head coach who's a former professional and an international, and also Jimmy Petrucci. That. No, do these clubs think, well, I won't send them to non-league because they won't have the experience there on the sidelines to nurture the talent of the future?
Well, I think, listen, I could come to something better in a minute, but the way that everything's operated in the football leagues, it kind of comes to head of youth situation. So the person who's head of youth will decide if there's certain players that he kind of want to let them go out on loan at certain clubs.
Yeah, earmark for the future there.
Yeah. And what kind of happens sometimes, I think they kind of underestimate the quality of football at, say, step 5 and 6. I kind of think they underestimate it a lot. And they don't do the due diligence and don't do their homework, right? And why I say that, and they're reluctant to send probably one of the potential star players who they love, and they think he's going to be the next whoever, follow me?
Yeah.
They're reluctant to send him to play in the North West Counties League. And I'm using the North West Counties because that's where I am. They're reluctant to send him down. They kind of prefer to send them to a club that's like in Conference National, because they feel that that's the nearer, higher and better to the Football League. But the Conference National isn't going to give them what we've just talked about. The Conference National, I'm not saying it's not, it can't be physical in the Conference National. Certain games can be, but again, what happens is they'll probably look at it, the better playing surfaces in the Conference National, right? Which we can't get away from that. There will be better surfaces, right? So the better surfaces in the Conference National. And equally, they probably feel that because it's higher up the pyramid, you know, the football will be better. But that is not, in my opinion, developing a player, because it's defeating the object. I mean, I'll give you an instance. I'm not going to mention no agents when I talk about this, but there was an agent that was close to Salford City, and I've been watching this player in fact, we had him, the player I'm talking about, we had him on loan here. And potentially, he had the potential to go to make a career out of the Football League. But he needed to be nurtured and looked after and go in the right environments, if you know, understand my logic. Anyway, for one reason, you know what it's like when they're getting around first team arenas, it comes down to the opinion of the manager at that particular time, whether he fancies to take that player on and give him a full-time contract. It doesn't, nothing to do with head of youth. I mean, well, it has to a point, but the final say goes to the manager. You follow me?
Whether he fits into the manager's plans.
Yeah. So if you've got a player that the manager, in his opinion, feels that he's more advanced at this point than the other player to get a contract, that player will win the contract. The other player is out on a limb. He'll get released.
Yeah.
This is my point now. A point is the agents who are connected with that club, and this is where I go daft, because it's about the kid developing. He continued. Now, there's a reason. If you got hold of his kind of paperwork, or what his faults are, or where he wants to continue his development, everything else, you follow me?
Yeah.
He needs to go to a club or be in a level where he can continue. So if they think that he's not ready, mindset's not ready for the physicality of Division 2, and they feel that he needs to get more physical, where would you send him? Would you send him into a club that's playing in a level where physicality doesn't really come into it? Or would you send him further down the pyramid to be in a club where physicality does come into it?
Well, you're going to send him down where he's going to get blooded.
Well, that's what I think. That's the most logical. You would put him down at a club. Now, the agents tend not to do that because the clubs where like, say, at North West Counties level, they're not going to make a butter out the agent because we're not paying the kind of money where
20% don't latch on to a smaller club.
So what happens is they pitch the player too high and he drops in, and then he wonders why. They wonder why that these players drop down the pyramid and their head goes. Because from 1 minute they're up there on the peripheral of Salford, first team, and then the next minute they've gone to, say, FC United, and the manager or head coach at FC United feels that they're not even ready for that level. So he farms them out lower, and before you know where they are, they've gone from up there to down there, and then they go out. And it's all wrong. And it's not... It's kind of lose what we're all talking about here, in my opinion. This is, again, the old school mentality.
Yeah.
It loses that. And I think that they've got to be pitched. That's why I firmly believe that the person I'm talking about now, he would have been better coming into us, into the environment at Bacup Borough. Because, look, my job, there's nothing I want more than we want success at Bacup Borough. That's one. Equally, if we're a kind of a development club, we need to develop players, not for a good career at North West Counties level, but for a good, if it's not going to be a Football League career, a good non-league career at the highest level of non-league.
Yeah.
That's what we're about. So they've got to get a balance. Now, like you've just touched on, you've brought somebody in here. I've got vast experience from at all varying levels, having worked with some great people in the game.
Yeah.
Equally, because I work with the template of the Football League template, but with very little money. Equally, I've brought in my head coach, an experienced head coach that's he's been an international footballer. He's obviously professional, been in the professional game all his life from a young lad, from what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So he's got vast experience. He's coached at a top Premier League club for 11 years.
Well, he was at Manchester City, wasn't he, for 11 years?
Yeah, working with, obviously he's a goalkeeper, so we were working with like the likes of Joe Hart, the elite team. Now, I brought him in here, and now he's working with my lads, and he's obviously helping his experience with our lads here. That's what I brought in. That's why I brought him in here, because he's a top guy, and I'm privileged and proud to have him in here. And then you bring us to Jimmy Petruzzi, which is part of the coaching setup.
Yeah.
And he's worked with not only all the London clubs in his, but he's been out there with the foreign clubs, and he's part of the Australian. And goes out with the Australian
It's a federation
academy.
Out there, yeah.
Federation. So what we've got here at Bacup, we've got something that we could develop and help these players try and continue the progression, having taken a step out of the Football League because they got released, basically, have a couple of years here, and then hopefully they're ready to go back on the peripheral back at the Football League. I mean, but it's difficult now in the Football League because there's that many with the COVID situation. Clubs aren't, players' contracts are coming up now, which, but for this COVID situation, what would have happened, normally anybody that's coming out of contract now would have had a new contract on the table. Most club teams with players coming out of contract, because they don't know how it's all going to go with the football scenario, and they kind of not signing new contracts at the minute. Which is another difficulty. But under normal circumstances, let's talk normal circumstances. So the fact that what I see, but I've looked at this and I've looked at it, and I think there's room for change. There needs to be change. Now, the only people that's going to change, well, I've got something here that I think could work really, really, really well. but people are reluctant for change. But as Neil Warnock, because we have to come back to the Neil Warnock situation, as he says, and it's not only Neil Warnock that's saying it, Jamie Ireland we had on the show is saying exactly what I'm saying. I firmly believe that a club like Bacup Borough, with the setup that we've got, could work wonders, and obviously for a football that gets tied up with a football league club, could be part of their development by being a link, and I mean a strong link, with that football club. But there's kind of rulings that don't allow certain things, but there's ways around it, is what I'm trying to say. Now, I'll give you an instance. It's all, when you talk to a manager, so if kind of what I'm trying to say is, you went to a manager might not like, because he'll look at Bacup Borough. I'll give you an instance. A few years ago, Keith Hill, I was very, very close with a director, and he's still a director of Rochdale Football Club. Right? I'll not mention his names because it wouldn't be right to mention names. And he was extremely keen, was this director. He's still a director today at Rochdale Football Club. And he was keen for Rochdale to have a strong link with Bacup Borough. And the strong link with Bacup Borough, one of them was that the senior youth setup would play their games on Bacup. Right? Now, as you know, at Bacup, the pitch it's flat, it's in great condition, but it's slanted. It's got a slope on it that runs. But there's a lot of clubs in the league. You look at Corn, slope on it. There's lots of clubs that got slopes on it.
Clitheroe the same, yeah.
Clitheroe, slight slope on it. You get me?
Yeah.
So he decided, he said to me, right, and at the time, Keith Hill, he hadn't got the first team manager's job at Rochdale. He was kind of head of youth at the time at Rochdale. And I remember, and it was in the summer, he said, I'm going to bring Keith up. He said, I'm going to bring Keith up to have a look at the facilities, have a look at the ground. So he met me down at the gate with Keith Hill. Keith Hill's there, not knocking it, I'm just telling you, it's summertime and he's there, Mr. Smoother, with his glasses on, sunglasses, looking the part. I mean, you know, on pitch, it was summertime. Pitch had been done, everything. We'd had the contractors in. It looked immaculate. The pitch was absolutely brilliant. Straight away, he's pulling his nose, is Keith Hill. And the director of Rochdale saying, "Why are you pulling your nose, Keith? What's wrong?" Nah. He said, "I don't fancy." He said, just imagine, you know, teams coming to play Rochdale like from Man United and Liverpool, and we're bringing them here where that slope is. And that slope, he said, no, it doesn't look. And I've gone. I stepped in. Don't forget, I've been a youth team coach. I went, hang on. I said, this is where it starts. You should be educating these lads, not mollycoddling them.
Foundations are here.
Exactly. Not mollycoddling them, telling them this is where, you know, this is what it's all about. I mean, I can imagine Jose Mourinho turning around to his Tottenham lads at Marine and saying, listen, you've seen what it's like here. You've seen, and Marine's a good setup. You've seen what it's like here. If you don't make it in the pro game, you're ending up at clubs like this.
So that's where you're going to learn more about yourself as an individual.
Exactly.
Pictures like that every week.
Correct. And I turned around, and one of the other things I said to him, I said, listen, if they can trap a ball on Bacup Borough, right?
Yeah.
If they get the first chuck right on Burnley, they will. Exactly. That's my words exactly, Steve. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I said, I'm thinking, bonkers, where's your mindset? That's wrong. Anyway, I walked away and left him. Needless to say, he didn't, because Keith had the final say and he didn't want him here.
But these points that you're making and what Neil Warnock's mentioned and other people on social media have mentioned over the last couple of days, it seems to me it's common sense. It's common sense, which we seem to have slipped away from.
100% common sense. They need to know what it's like to be, and especially if you're trying to, when you've got a young lad that's been through, let's say you've had a year about it. I mean, I think it was this week it come out in the Burnley game, or prior to the Burnley game. the midfield player for Man United, McTominay, right? He turned around. I love this club. I've been at this club since I was 5-year-old, right? I love it. So you've got McTominay that's been at Manchester United from 5-year-old. Now he's not known anything else. He's got embedded into him the Manchester United ethos, Manchester United way. He's lucky because when I say lucky, he's managed to go through the system. Now to the fact that the other day he captained the first team, which is incredible and unbelievable, right? But he's captain. Now, but what I'm trying to say is when he's being grounded, when he's like gone from the academy situation into like more at 16-year-old, 17, he needs surely mentally into their heads is, listen, do you want this life? If you want this life, if you want to live the dream and turning out there for Manchester United, you've got to be able to accept being roughed up on the rough with that. Not from 5-year-old, he'll have gone through all the good things at Man United. So for him to play a season or 2 seasons in a non-league environment on pitches that aren't up to the standard of what they are at Football League level, then it's all part and parcel of a learning curve and also as part of the progression. So what I'm trying to say is, from a young age, from being part of a top European worldwide club that have that ethos, by taking him out of that environment for a period of time, you know, as part of his learning curve and saying, look, go and have a bit of that and then come back into us and have a bit of this, and then you'll realise where you want to be, and if you want to be here, so that gets everybody's mindsets absolutely tuned in properly. But it doesn't happen, and I think that if I ask you a question, right, this is where I ask you a question, right? The way that the system is, could obviously, let's say for instance Burnley. I keep coming back to Burnley because they're just over the hill. If Burnley's more senior team, and they didn't feel that it was developing, they weren't getting enough games, because that's another problem. They don't get enough games, right? If they're not getting enough games, and they're not getting enough games where it's physical, where it's competitive, where they've got to have that winning mentality, and they feel like that the system, with the league that they're playing in, which is all what all the other Football League clubs are playing in, isn't doing them any good, as Neil Warnock's kind of reverting to, or referring to, should I say, not reverting to, referring to, then if you should turn around to me and said, could Burnley, that group, enter the North West Counties League? Right?
Right.
Indirectly. Yeah, I'm answering. I'm asking the question. I'm answering it as well. Because if they were to enter into the North West Counties League, they would get what they wanted. They get more game time. They get more physicality. Right? They get more of the winning mentality because they'd be in a changing room where they're educated. This is what it's like in a senior changing room. So they get that.
It's all about progression. So the progression would take place with them playing at that level of football rather than playing the passy of the under 23s.
Yeah, but the rules don't kind of allow that, because if you think about it, they'd have the rules of entering the North West Counties are any step 5, 6 club, or step 4 or step 3, whatever. If you're in the national pyramid, you've got to have all the infrastructure right. Now, technically, they're a Football League club, so they've got the infrastructure right, but they won't want their more senior team to be playing on Turf Moor every week. It can't happen. It won't happen, so it's not happening. So take that out of the equation. So what they could do is the ground share.
Right.
Because it's no different than say your AFC Liverpool or the ground share. You follow me?
Yeah.
However, there's a knockback here. Under the name of Burnley Football Club, that would not allow it. It couldn't happen because let's be cynical here. If Burnley Football Club's most elite team are ground sharing with Bacup Borough, let's say, and they progress and they progress and they progress and they progress and they progress, eventually they could get, it's the pathway, so they could get in the Football League. So you could end up with a situation that Burnley Football Club,
playing against
elite,
Burnley B.
are playing against the most are in Football League. It can't happen. It can't happen. It won't. No. So on principle, what I'm saying is, there's got to be a way. If you like that idea, there's got to be a way how you get round it. And this is the way that I think that you get round it, right? This is me saying it, right? So, we have a link. A club like us, I'm not saying us, but I'm saying a club like us, and we've got the infrastructure.
Someone in the non-league.
Because of the staff we've got, because you've got to look at that. So, obviously, as a group of staff, could we go and take our concept into Burnley Football Club? A Football League club would say to a non-league club, you can we'll loan you a player. We need him to play in games, because usually what happens, they need the players. They loan a player. They want him to have games. They want him to get that experience, and they'll loan him a player to us or any other club. But that kind of has its problems, because we've got to realise that we're competing in our own league, and we've got our own players, and sometimes it might be a player that's in a position that is competing against one of our own players that's flying himself. So you wouldn't take him out just to put a Football League and help a Football League club. It doesn't work it won't work that way.
Yeah.
And equally, the issue is as well with the football, by loaning a player from a Football League club on that situation, is it has its own problems in terms of the competitions. I mean, in your everyday run-of-the-mill league games, you can play a lone player, but there's cup competitions out there that non-league clubs are involved in that stop you from playing a player that's kind of on loan, that's a loan player. You can't play him in the competition. So take the FA Cup. Technically, you could in the FA Cup, as long as you get permission from the club that is loaning you the player. In the FA Trophy, FA Vase, you cannot play lone players. Them are just two competitions that I've just come up with. Yeah. So if you've got a situation that you take the player on for 4 weeks, and it just so happens in them 4 weeks that come up that you're playing for the weather and one thing and another, you've no league games because you're concentrating on these cup games. That these
only play 2 games in the time he's with you.
Exactly. So that's not ideal. It's not an ideal scenario. Not an ideal scenario for Burnley, and it's not an ideal scenario for Bacup Borough. So the way that I see it, and the way that I see that there could be something here is, and it might be something of the future where kind of clubs really have to think about this. And this is, and it's no good speaking to the head of youth about this, because they're here today, gone tomorrow. We need to be speaking to kind of chief executive,
director of football,
or director of football about what I'm going to say. Because if you've got a talented bunch, and as part of their development, and it should come into a part of their development of what we've just said, what could happen is there'd have to be some sort of agreement away from the contract, right, where it states and covers the club that if any of these players that the club, what I'm going to say, we can't sell them on to Man United because they're not, technically they are our players, but they're not our players. You follow me?
Yeah.
So somehow we come up to a situation where we go, hang on. So if they've got say 6 players that they've identified that have got half a chance, but they need to continue the progressing, right? What could happen is, for 12 months, for a season, those 6 players sign for kind of Bacup Borough Football Club or any other football club, Ramsbottom or Padiham or whoever it is, on a contract So so there's no ifs, buts, or maybes. They are contracted to that football
they're
club.
your player for 12 months.
They're our player for that 12 months. Then obviously there comes the situation about paying them, but there's ways around that as well. But they're our players. They're not Burnley's. They're not anybody else's players. They're our players, although they are technically Burnley's. You know what I'm trying to get at, yeah? So we've got them on a contract for 12 months. Now, in that, because we're a semi-pro club and we're not playing we're not training full time, then players are still under the domain. Every day we'll go back to Burnley and train full time.
Yeah.
Right? So it's not a problem. They'll train full time. So they're still getting the technical coaching, pass, as Neil Warnock quoted, pass. So they'll get that part of it. They'll get all that technical coaching done there.
But it's a situation. It's a situation where, going off what you said, both parties are going to be happy with that because that player is still getting the progression the professional club are looking for.
So what happens then is, but on a match day, when it comes up to match or when we're training ourselves, they train with us as well. So it might be they have a day off at, say we're training on a Tuesday night, they don't go into Burnley on a Tuesday, they train with us because they're training with us at night. Yeah. Right? But come Wednesday, they're back in at Burnley. You follow me? But they're contracted to Bacup Borough. They're contracted. 12 months, it's all above board.
They are getting that experience.
So when they come into our environment, I don't treat them any different than I treat my next player because they're my players for 12 months.
Yeah.
You follow me?
Yeah.
But what happens then is we're schooling them in another part of their football progression because all of a sudden they're in a changing room with, and I'm Brent Peters, but a kind of a Neil Warnock kind of, or type of manager, you get me, where it's going to drill in it's going to be a wide awake for them because they're going to be in a changing room where you've got to be instilled in that winning mentality.
Yeah.
They're going to be they've got a coach that's experienced and knows what it entails at football for them to make it at the football league level. They're going to go out and compete in games of football out there on the pitch where it's going to be rough and tumble and they're going to get physical. So, and then what happens is at the end of the 12 months, they then return to Burnley.
Who can then assess them to see whether they want to keep them or not.
Or whether they need to, yeah, exactly. That way, everybody's in a win-win situation.
I just can't understand, though, why this has not happened already.
Well, I can't comment on that. I mean, look, I kind of think that I know the rules and regulations like the next person because it's been my job for such a long time.
Yeah.
Like I said to you, what's to stop a football league club indirectly form, having their kind of 23s, if you will, under a different name that applies for the Northwest counties. But before they do that, they would have to have, just like AFC Liverpool, just like City of Liverpool, just like Borough AFC, they'll need to make sure that their infrastructure and everything's right, which they will be. They're a football league club, but they'll have to have a ground share because that's what would happen.
Yeah,
but that creates a problem higher up. So I don't think the rules technically would allow that to happen because of it could happen. Whereas if they go through the pyramid higher up, like FC United and Manchester did, well, although they've got to a level, right, and they kept progressing, there could be a situation where their actual own team are in a football league with a more senior team, and that can't happen. No. So the way around it, it's all part of the development. Like as Neil Warnock says, they need to get back to the Central League situation. Well, if they don't want to get back to the Central League situation for whatever reasons, the clubs like kind of Middlesbrough, with the mentality of the manager of Neil Warnock, he could send his players or his better ones that he thinks these lads need tougning up a bit.
Yeah. There's a lot of good clubs up in the northeast who'd be willing to take them.
They need to go there. Just get they're still under. They haven't been released or anything. They're still kind of Burnley's or Middlesbrough's players.
And they're sent out for a sense of reality.
But they've gone for a season-long loan, basically. But they're not loan. You can't use that word loan. Because if you loan them, that's why they've got to be taken out of there. There's got to be some back agreement somewhere along the line, so that what happens is, the club they still have an interest in them.
It can fit within the rules.
It's a bit like the provision. Academy that some years ago that our friend Terry Robinson were involved in. It's a kind of a similar concept to that, because the Provision Academy, they had academy players, they were set up, and what happened were they were sponsored, that academy, in varying outlets. So let's take the one that we had here, based here at Bacup Borough when Andy Hill were involved. The sponsor of that academy, the academy, was sponsored by Sheffield United. Right. But the agreement were that Sheffield United had first call on any of them players. Yeah. So basically, it's kind of I'm thinking that there's kind of a similar concept could be out there, whereby as part of the education of a club's, I'm not talking apprentices here, I'm talking when they've like under 23 players. So as part of that remit, they could go on loan to a club like ourselves, but loaning a player is not straightforward, where they kind of just go for a month, 2 months, 3 months, because it's not right in my eyes. That I prefer to have something whereby, they as a group, they come to us and they're not loaned, because loan, by that word loan, they're not our players, basically. Yeah. They're another club's players. And that restricts where they can play or what competitions they play in. Also, the rest of the players in the group could think to themselves, well, he's getting preferential treatment over me because of, I'm being left out because he's a loan player from, say, Burnley or wherever. I wouldn't want it to be like that, really. So, but what I'm saying is the concept could be whereby a group, as part of their development, it's roles in reverse. They're contracted to a football club. So in this instance, it'd be Bacup Borough. They're contracted. Indirectly, nothing to do with that football club. They're under our jurisdiction. Yeah. Because that football club, and indirectly they are kind of connected to them, they can go in and still continue the full-time training, coaching.
Which it works absolutely perfectly on for both parties.
Yeah, so the technical side of things can go into that. When it comes down to the other side of it, mentally and toughening them up and getting them into the concept, so they're prepared right to go into a first team environment, they've actually had a season where they've been at a club like ours. Yeah. And they will get treated no different than any. They're just part of our pool of players. They're a squad. If they're not, if we feel that we've got better, more advanced players at that time that deserves to be in the team, they'll be treated just like they would be if they were nothing to do with the outside club, if you follow me. We treat them as though they're just 100% our players. And, if they're above the station, they will get in the team. But that way, they're playing at a level, they get toughened up mentally, physically. They're playing in a demanding league. If during the course of that contract, the club, the parent club, or I can't really say parent because people will pick me up and say, well, they're players. No, they're not, but you know what I mean? Yeah, like if exactly the club like Burnley, for instance, are keeping tabs on them because they know what agreement we've got. Yeah. And if they, for instance, if Sean Dyche had a situation where he kind of likes our centre forward, that's their centre forward indirectly, right? Kind of likes him, and he's got tough and he's pulling up the trees, they might then decide, roles in reverse, hang on, we're going to loan that player back. Bacup are going to loan him back to us at Burnley because I might want him to go into my first team.
Correct, yeah.
So instead of doing it the other way, they're loaning him out to non-league clubs. Yeah. It's kind of the non-league club loaning it back to Burnley.
But it does, so going off what you're saying, it's certainly, and what you've said over the last hour or so, it certainly is something that, should be pursued by a lot of professional clubs. And what Neil Warnock said in last week and the victory for Chorley against the under-23s of Derby, it certainly brings up them questions of the possibilities of it happening.
Well, I think so. I mean, if you take into that game with Chorley and Derby County, if you look at that game, and I watched it, right, and not taking anything away from Chorley, but I'm not being disrespectful to Derby, as you know, we've got a relatively young first-team squad. I'm telling you, and I'm telling you now, that we would have gave Chorley a better game than what Derby County did.
And that's probably all to do with the fact that at least our lads have been blooded and they can respond to them situations.
Correct. With the physicality, a lot of it. I mean, that was a kind of the difference in a lot of ways. Now, our lads are into that situation week in, week out, and equally in the terms of, I think they get wrapped up in cotton wool too much. I mean, I listened to the coach after the interview. And yeah, of course he's going to say what he says. I'm proud of these lads. They've come here and they don't. Hang on, I'm proud of them. Hang on, these are lads that's are aspiring to be pros. They're already at a pro club, and they're aspiring, and they are pros. There is, what's he saying? At the end of the day, I'd be if I were kind of in Wayne Rooney's positions, sat at home, with a COVID situation where I'm isolating. And I'm watching what's going on there. I wouldn't be happy when I turn back into my club that them players have. I think they're not just right. Technically, they're good, but physically, they're not.
Yeah. And I suppose as a director or an owner of a club as well, if you're watching games like that, you're thinking, hold on a minute, we've got it's not a production line coming through here because these guys aren't even ready. I'm going to have to get my checkbook out again.
Well, you can look at it any way you want because it is a bone of contention. I mean, we go back to earlier on in this kind of show, and the statement that Neil Warnock made, where he talked about Brentford and the model they're using. It's kind of similar to kind of what I'm saying in some respects.
Yeah.
And they recognise that. They recognise that situation. Now, I think more and more football league clubs need to be getting in bed with look, not all non-league clubs, because not all league clubs are equipped like
they're not structured in the same way.
They ain't structured in the same way. But certainly there's other clubs like Bacup Borough, and I'm not just using Bacup Borough. There are other clubs out there that this concept, what I'm talking about, would work. And more and more clubs need to get in bed with the kind of non-league clubs. But because of the ruling, and because of the situation where kind of loaning a player, and you have that word loaning, and the contract players in your loan, it's kind of watered down a little bit because it does pose its problems. It's not an equal playing field. Whereas if they were kind of with us for a period, however that period is, 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, on a contract to us. And the contract to us, so they've kind of relinquished their sort of grip at the other club, at the senior club. In terms of what I'm saying, even though behind the scenes there might be a legal document that says, we couldn't do anything with them players. Like, say, for instance, we've got a player here from Burnley, and he's nobody knows he's from Burnley. He's a contract player to Bacup, and we got an interest from Liverpool, say, and we sold him on to.
You're not in a position to sell them off because really a part of that player still belongs to the club in which they've come from.
That's why there'd have to be a legal document away from any contracts that's between club and club. That we wouldn't, to cover that situation happening, right? But in terms of contract, there's no reason then, right, that if that player's or a group of players have been passed to us from the Premier League club, and they're having a period of time with us, like say a season, there's no reason they're on a full contract. They're under the jurisdiction of Bacup Borough. We've got obviously the chance to put them back in. They can have full time. They continue the full time training with the Premier League club, right? Match days and everything. They're under our jurisdiction, not under theirs. If they want them for any time during that then we do it in reverse. We loan them to the club, to the professional club. Because indirectly, they're their players.
Yeah, but it's definitely an avenue which is worth pursuing for a lot of clubs, because, as we were saying at the beginning of the show, the under-23s level of football doesn't seem to be suiting all the clubs, and that's one of the reasons why Brentford decided back in 2017 that they were going to opt to go back towards the old system, where old school is new school.
Old school is new school, and the thing is, if it's all about the development in a footballer is not just developing him how to receive a ball, how to pass a ball.
Only a part of it.
That's only part of it. There's other things that have to come into it. And unfortunately, because it's not an equal playing field, because these football league clubs are all in their own bubble, and under-23s play under-23s with the same mindset, they're never going to get mentally toughened up or physically toughened up.
There's always going to be a part of that individual's game that is missing. Yeah.
And this is why I think Neil Warnock's getting that. And he's saying, he even mentions 2 non-league teams up in the northeast, because obviously they're close to. He mentions one of the old mining teams, or Chorley. He mentions in his write-up, I want my players to go and play for a bit for them to get toughened up in that, play, which is exactly right.
Well, there's some fantastic clubs. As you were talking to me in early this week, we were talking about non-league football up there in the northeast, and how some of these sides are really, really good. They don't want to go up the league tables because of the travelling, but when they get into the FA Vars or the FA Trophy, they always seem to flourish.
Well, that's right, because they're playing above the station all the time, and that's what happens.
The West Aucklands and the South Shields of this world and Gatesheads. All really good sides.
The simple fact is, it's like anything else. If there's a system in place and nobody thinks about outside the box to make it better than what it currently is, it will always stay the same. It's obvious. It will always stay the same. And there's obviously something not right with this, with the system that they're currently in at the minute. It's currently... It's not right, because people like Neil Warnock, listen, if I come out on this show and said it openly, without anything coming from Neil Warnock, right, people will probably think I've lost my marbles and I'm chewing the fat and talking balls.
Yeah, but the fact that it wouldn't have the same effect, would it? We know.
No, correct. But because Neil Warnock's saying it, and we've had Jamie on here. I mean, there might be certain things I said that Jamie might disagree with. Jamie Ireland.
A lot of things he did say are exactly what you've been saying on this show, Brent.
And I think and I think more and more they've got to interact or be a link up with a relationship with non-league and the right clubs, but I don't get the right clubs being, and I've got to say this, being a conference national, because of the nearest thing to, it's kind of the nearest thing to the football league. These lads are still in development. I mean, if you look at your conference national sides, most of them players that's played up there, that's playing in the conference national, they're either football league players that have been in a football league. They're always either ex-football league players that have probably had 3 years in the game, but for whatever reason been released, so they've gone playing at conference national, or they're some of them have played a good level of non-league football, so they've been groomed in non-league football. It's very rare you'll get an academy player that's just come through an academy that's holding his own at conference national. It's either one or the other, in my opinion. You will get them. I mean, obviously you're going to get that situation, but in the main, where they're talking about the physicality of the game, and I know they're trying to take the physical side of the game, but it's not just that. It's being in a winning mentality. A first team dressing room at step 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 is very similar to a first team dressing room at football league level, because it's all the same. It's all relevant because we're trying to. It's winning. It's the winning mentality. We're winning, even though our lads aren't elite players. They're probably getting taught more than kind of your elite footballers at Burnley Football Club in terms of the winning mentality. A lot of these kids.
A part of that is, I suppose, being taken out of your day-to-day comfort zone. Not having the luxuries of playing on lush surfaces and having nice, warm dressing rooms. All part of the process is being taken out of your comfort zone so that you can relate to these situations when they occur.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's all part and parcel, and it's no wonder the people like Jamie Ireland, Neil Warnock, what's he called at Sheffield United manager?
Chris Wilder.
Yeah. People like that, they've been brought up in what kind of environment I'm saying. It's not done them any harm whatsoever, but there's too much wrapping people up in cotton wool at the minute. And it's and the problem is we're wrapping them up in cotton wool. There's more probably go out of the professional game down into the non-league that don't make it than what there is that do make it. And the problem they've lost all that. So then when there's one thing getting released from a football league club and dropping into the non-league game is one thing, and that's bad enough, without the culture shock of having to face the other rigorous parts of it where it's physically and mentally demanding. Yeah. But they'd be geared for that if my kind of template were put into operation.
Yeah, well, I hope it does, because I think a lot of clubs will be, looking at what's happened over the last couple of weeks. Listen to what Neil said. Looked at what Brent's done as well. Brentford have done as well in the past, and thinking, you know what, maybe he's got a point. Maybe we need to, look at the different avenues and look at different opportunities in the future.
Well, I think so, and I've said it for quite some time. It's not just something a knee-jerk reaction with myself. No, it is something we spoke about.
Certainly is. Anyway, Brent, we got there in the end. We're another great show, and hopefully a bit of activity on social media later on.
Hopefully. See you soon.
See you later.